Cubole Sangrones, we are live. Oh my gosh. And just right as we went live, I got a frog in my throat. Cubole Sangrones, we're live in the carne asada. Look who's here, everybody. Yes, you've been clamoring. You have been asking, where is she? We want Alicia. We want Alicia. La Princesa de Picolandia, Alicia del Valle is here. Princesa, how are you? How you been? What have you been up to?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. Hi, guys. Long time. Let's just call it a sabbatical. I was on a sabbatical, but I'm back. And that's really sweet that you said that. People really were asking for me. Thank you. And if they weren't, thank you for lining me. I appreciate that very much, Juan. Always, to make me feel good, I'll take it.
I'm not lying. People were asking. People wanted to. Is Alicia still on the show? And it's just like, look, Alicia's a very busy person. Okay, so she works hard for the money. So hard for it.
I like that too.
So being that we have it, a lot's happened since last time you've been on the show, Princesa. So I know you're a positive person and you're all about the Care Bear stare and all that stuff. So I hate to go negative with you, but I do want to get your opinion on this, and we value your opinion on this. But we did a whole episode on when the Julio news broke, but we just want to hear your thoughts because we haven't had a chance to hear your opinion about the whole Julio Urias being arrested for suspicion of domestic violence. So I give you the floor, Princesa.
Well, I appreciate that. And I get it. It's a huge story. I do feel like by now everyone has got their opinion and some of them are pretty strong. I know a lot of people are angry. I'm more just disappointed and I just feel so bad for everyone involved in that situation. We keep being told this and have to remind ourselves as Dodger fans, they are human. And as a human to human and as someone who has, been through that kind of situation, it's fucked up. Excuse my French. It's messed up. And Julio screwed up. And I know he's not found guilty yet, and we'll get into that later, but I'm sorry. He was given a chance. I was one of his biggest defenders. And now I feel like a fool. And again, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just saying, like, dude, he had a chance to turn things around, to not let something like this happen again. And he didn't learn his lesson. And don't get me wrong, the positive person in me, you can't have, darkness. You can't have light without darkness. Like, hopefully this is just better for him in the long run. But man, what a blow. Just a blow to himself, his life, his wife, girlfriend's life, all the families involved. And then somewhere on that list definitely are, Dodger fans. I just don't think we should take it personally because these are real life matters. But man, is it fucked up,
No, and the thing that I've heard the most from fans, and we talked about this on the show, I think a lot of it was the disappointment because we grew up with him. He was 16 years old when he was with the Dodgers, right? But I heard this a lot from fans, and I'm curious if you heard it, Princesa. And it was the disappointment because another Mexican hero icon has been dethroned. And I know on our show we talked about the dangers of putting people up on a pedestal and doing, and this was a really good reminder of, we have to, as Babyface said, we really don't know these guys. We don't know anything about them. But I think the disappointment that from the fans was just really, look, we have very few people that we can look up to, in whether it be in sports that are Mexicans or in the entertainment field. So when someone achieves any level of success, it's like we're living vicariously through them. So
Absolutely.
when something like this happens, I think the community does take it personal. So I hear you when you say you're disappointed.
Oh, absolutely. And see, I wasn't even going to take it there because if I mention things like that on my own personal page, I get attacked. There are Dodger fans out there who just they want us to be blind to the human side of these players and the front office, and they were just like, no, basically just Julio could do no wrong because he is a Mexican. And I just thought that is very dangerous. That is I get it. You know, I'm all about representation. I'm so down. You know, brown is beautiful. That is me. But at the same time, this is human to human. This is bigger than that. And what does that say though about how many Mexican players are left on the Dodgers?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a whole other conversation. And I didn't want to go there. That's why I didn't bring it up. But you are so right, Juan. It is.
Well, Victor Gonzalez got sent down. So there's no Mexicans left. He just got sent down.
That's what I'm saying. And yet
we got Austin.
Yes. There you go. You know, yeah, Hispanic Heritage Month. Yeah. So, no, you're right. But okay, babyface. The fact that you said that. See how I'm always searching and looking for anyone that has some kind of like Mexican background, you know, some kind of Latino-ism in them. Like the day I found out Linda Carter was Mexican, like that kind of thing. Like Austin Barnes is Mexican.
Yeah.
It's that kind of vibe. So yes, you are right, Juan. It just adds even more, you know, just to the disappointment and the just like, you know, and it just seems like it's a downward spiral. And how can he come back? I'm sure. Yeah, no.
Well, and that leads me to that the transition of how when you say how can he come back, before I say that, of course, look, we've talked about the disappointment. We've talked about what he means to the Mexican and the Mexican American community. But once again, I cannot stress enough. The victim is the most important person in this story. And by us discussing these things, by no means are we dismissing the fact that the victim is the most important person in this case. And so, again, we can't stress that enough. But earlier this week on Monday, when the Dodgers came back from that road trip and they were playing the show pods, I was at Dodger Stadium. And there were a couple of things that I noticed. One was the mural in the left field left field loge was completely painted over. Now, before that, over the weekend, because the Jonas Brothers were having a concert at Dodger Stadium, we saw that the mural on the right side loge was covered. So we knew that going in there that they had covered that. So it was like, was that just temporary? Were they just covering it? Were they working on it? Were they doing something already to erase the Julio part of that mural? So when I got to Dodger Stadium on Monday and I saw that they had completely painted over the one in left field, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then when we went into the clubhouse and saw that Julio's locker was removed from the clubhouse, there was this energy in the stadium that it was just hovering over everybody. Like, that's like, okay, are we going to talk about this or are we not going to talk about this? Because what was becoming obvious was this is the erasure of Julio Urias. The Dodgers are distancing themselves from him, and it seemed like they are erasing him from the organization. So in the pregame scrum, we are talking to Roberts, and we started off in this asking him questions about pitching, and everything was normal. And then Mike DiGiovanna of the LA Times asked the question, whose decision was it to remove Julio's locker from the clubhouse? And Roberts, if you haven't seen it, you can go to our YouTube. We have the video there. Roberts said he had just found out that Monday that locker had been removed, and it was the decision of the organization. Dylan Hernandez of the LA Times followed up with, have you spoken to Julio? Dave Roberts says he has not spoken to Julio. After that, I followed up and I asked Dave Roberts, does this mean by removing his locker that the organization is sending a signal to the team, we're moving on without Julio? And that's when Dave Roberts said, Yeah, I guess so. And look, they have to finish off the rest of the season. I mean, we've talked about the disappointment, but what we really haven't talked about is how he's disappointed his teammates.
Right.
He's let his team down because they needed him for the stretch run and they needed him in the postseason. And that's something that it was just hovering, and you had that negative energy that was on. And then the Dodgers ended up blowing a 7-2 lead on Monday to the show pods of all people. I just want to ask you guys how I see that the Dodgers are making every effort to remove Julio Urias from the Dodgers. But what is the clip that we consistently see from the 2020 World Series? And that's Julio striking out and getting the striking that Tampa Bay Ray out and getting the last out. Does this mean we're never going to see that clip anymore? Princesa, I get the Dodgers being sensitive to this issue. I totally get them distancing. But do we erase the 2020 World Series? I mean, what other clip can we show that I mean, it's bad enough that everybody calls that a Mickey Mouse ring.
Yeah.
But if we're never going to show that clip now, is there ever going to be proof that the Dodgers even won a World Series in 2020?
Okay, well, I get what you're asking, but realistically, that clip is out in the cloud. It's not going to go away. But I know what you mean. From the Dodgers, from MLB, will we see that clip ever again? And I don't know the answer to that. The way the trend, it's not going to be shown anymore. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. You know, the woman in me and the human, not the fan, of course, is like, well, that's what he gets. That's what he deserves. But in context, I don't know. You started off this conversation, Juan, with it almost sounded like a toxic family. Like nobody's talking about it. You're just
Yeah.
erasing it. So
Yeah.
how do you move forward? How do you truly heal if you don't have that discussion? And I'm not over here trying to be like, the fans deserve to know. I mean, yes, would we like to be there? I mean, but truly with the Dodgers and their team, I hope there are conversations going on. I hope that I mean, they didn't tell the skipper. That was not discussed with him. So I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of just unreal that they are not going to be able to show that clip. And before anyone comes at me, it's just history. You can't erase history. You can choose a different side of history once you get more facts, but history, what truly happened, him throwing off that mound in Fort Worth, that happened. You can't, just because you don't show the video doesn't mean it didn't happen. I don't know. It feels kind of toxic. Like you need to have these discussions, right? And I hope they are having discussions in the clubhouse because it doesn't help. It's going to come up somehow. It's going to manifest in another way. What do you think, Babyface?
I think that's a good point, though, Alicia. Babyface, to Alicia's point about the fact that Roberts didn't know, and it seems like the organization really didn't have this conversation with the players. Can you tell our audience, for those of you guys on the live watching, Kike Hernandez's reaction?
So Kike was on, I believe what's called foul territory or fair territory a couple of days ago.
Foul territory.
And they asked him basically not to discuss what happened, but kind of just how the vibe has been. And Kike said, we don't know anything. We know exactly what everyone else knows. We haven't been told anything by the team. They're as curious as everybody else. They want to know what happened, what's going on with Julio, but they don't know anything apart from what has been reported on on all the outlets, and that's kind of, everybody's in the same boat. The organization doesn't seem to know anything different. The players don't know anything different. Everybody is kind of just in that waiting game right now.
And do you think, Babyface, that the players, I don't want to use the word trigger here, but they have, some of those players in that locker room have experience because of the Trevor Bauer thing. How many players in that Dodgers locker room right now are going, here we go again? But this is different because I do feel that Urias has a much different reputation than Trevor Bauer did. And a lot of those guys, go ahead, Princesa.
Well, so to that point, which I was going to bring up just after Babyface spoke, the conversations I've had with other other fans and family members, they point to Julio's reputation in that it's actually hurt him. That he is not, he's quiet, he's shy, he doesn't have a lot of goodwill and love. He's not a Kike. I mean, Kike is extreme, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so now for this to happen, for him to do these things or be accused of them again, it's kind of like it's easier to distance yourself from Julio because he's not that guy, right? He's not a jokester. He doesn't hang out with the players on the Dodgers outside of the stadium. And I mean, maybe because they don't have any other Mexicans. But I'm just saying, like, this is something that was brought up, and that makes sense. That, I mean, there's no one going to bat for him. Who would? When it's he's not close. And he's not friendly with the media either. So who is going to, have that conversation? It's almost easier to erase him, is my point.
You bring up a very interesting point there, Princesa, because if he maybe did have a better relationship with the media, maybe he would be going on some sort of rehab tour. Or, I mean, obviously in this case, he's not going to say anything because he's still under investigation, right? So he's going to be shut down. But it's just one of those things right now where, I mean, Babyface, you were there yesterday. His jersey is no longer being sold. If you go right now to Dodger Stadium, Babyface, there is no proof that Julio Urias is a part of the Dodgers, right?
I mean, I think there were some people wearing jerseys. That's about it. The jerseys the World Series jerseys that are up on the press box level next to that store across from the social media office, all those jerseys are gone. So there was like a Bellinger jersey, there was a Urias jersey up there, a couple of like maybe 5 jerseys from the World Series. And I think they're all gone. They all took them down.
Yeah, and so I want to take the time right now to thank everybody who's joining us on the live. We got our usuals: Philip Lopez, David wants a taco, Daniel, Simeon. It's been so long since we had a live. Thank you guys so much. I sense you guys' anger in terms of the disappointment with Julio. And to Philip Lopez's point, the only other new thing that we can add to the Julio story is it has been confirmed that there is video footage and that the police have that video footage. Now, the only new thing we can add to that is eventually that footage has to be released because it's part of the investigation. So they're not going to be able to bury that. That has to be released. Now, when they release it, that's going to be a different story, but they have to release that footage. And go ahead.
Aren't you surprised that it's not already been released? I mean, TMZ pays big money for these kinds of videos. So after this went down, I just kept thinking, oh man, just TMZ is going to show the video, da, da, da. I can't believe there's only one, because we're in that era where people don't stop to help others. They all take out their phones and shoot. So I can't believe there's only one. I mean, it's a bad joke and it's tasteless, but you get what I'm saying. That's the society we live in.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only new thing. I found it very interesting. Like I said, the vibe on Monday at Dodger Stadium felt very, very, because I do think, and Kike confirmed it. I think it was kind of a shock to everyone to walk into that clubhouse. His locker is gone. Colton Wong has, I mean, it's not like it's just an empty locker. They put Colton Wong in Julio's space. So that to me means you guys aren't expecting him back, even if nothing comes out of this, if no charges, if MLB decides they're not going to punish him or anything like that. The Dodgers, by pulling that locker out of the clubhouse, have basically said, we're done with you. So that's why I asked Roberts the question of, and don't let, I'm going to take this moment to take credit because, damn it, we deserve it. Don't let all these other stories of the LA Times, the Register, all these stories that got aggregated about, quote unquote, Dave Roberts was asked if the Dodgers are moving on. He was asked by the Bleed Lows podcast. Nobody gave us credit for that. So I'm letting you guys know it was the Bleed Lows podcast who asked that question. So damn it, I'm asking that question.
Way to be,
So,
Juan. Way to be.
so I just wanted to get the Princesa's thoughts on this because we hadn't seen her in a while. So now we're going to segue into baseball talk here, everybody. And I want to start with Babyface because Babyface was so eagerly anticipating this series with the show pods because he couldn't wait to shit on them. He couldn't wait. It's the last time we're going to play the show pods. We're going to go in there and we're going to kick their ass. Babyface, how you feeling that the show pods took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium? The first time the show pods have beaten the Dodgers since, I believe, June of 2021.
Well, honestly, to me, it felt kind of like spring training. It wasn't kind of like the Dodgers were into this series that much, right? It wasn't such a big deal. That first game, I told you guys, like Gavin Stone shouldn't have been in there that long, and they kind of gave that game away. So that they still should have won that game. Then they won the second game. Yesterday was kind of the only game that kind of Padres kind of really took it. But yeah, I mean, all I know is Padres are still 7-8 games back, and they're not making the playoffs. So that's all that really matters.
So if the show pods suck as much as you say they suck, why did the Dodgers lose 2 out of 3 to them?
It's baseball. And what happened to all the other series this year earlier? I mean, Padres had a big lead and won the game in San Diego that I was there, and Mookie hits that grand slam. They come back, score 7-8 runs. It happened.
So you're not concerned. I don't buy this whole the Dodgers weren't trying. The Dodgers had a 7-2 lead on Monday, and they blew that lead. Well, so yeah, it wasn't that the Dodgers were going in there. And I'm telling you, this was them coming from a cross-country road trip. They came in from Washington. They had every excuse to play like shit that day. They had every excuse because you get to the stadium and you had the Julio news of his locker being removed from the clubhouse. But they had a 7-2 lead.
But I think if they play that game differently, they don't let Gavin Stone stay in that long, it's a different game. You know, if they kind of just use, the bullpen a little bit differently, or they don't let them, go in there, and give up 7 runs, I think it's a different game. I think it's.
So you're not concerned at all? Like Gavin Stone had 65 pitches when they pulled him in that 6th inning. You would have gone full, let's use the bullpen to win that game.
I mean, if you're really trying to win that game, are you really going to let him give up that many runs? No, right? You're going to go to your bullpen. So it was kind of like, leave him out there for a bit. It's okay. We can leave him out there. And that's kind of where they lost the game.
Princesa, you don't think that's a preview of the playoffs? What we saw in this series?
I will say that these are the games, right, that the Dodgers would be and should be testing out the young ones, since we're going to rely so heavily on the young pitchers. So I'm kind of leaning towards Babyface, where, I mean, I don't know if they were not trying, but it can't hurt. I will say, though, that it doesn't help, because we know, being lifelong baseball fans, momentum matters. And I don't like this whole, they weren't trying. I don't like to hear that, because what do they think? They're going to flip a switch, right? Like, greatness is practiced every day. I mean, we keep being told that. It's on posters. Like, I'm not comfortable with these games that we should be winning. And I know the Dodgers can't win every game. It's just, statistically impossible. But I still don't like that they lost 2 out of 3 to the Padres. And that was without Manny Machado and everything. So Blake Snell, though, you guys aren't giving him any credit. Maybe the Dodgers didn't try to lose so much this last game as Blake Snell, who's possibly going to win, or is the front runner rather, to win the Cy Young, was delivering his game.
Yesterday, they were completely outmatched, and they couldn't do anything with Blake Snell. I mean, so you give the guy credit. And like I said, that first game, Dodgers should have won that game. But like I said, I'm not putting that much weight into it, because it feels like a postseason game. One, I wouldn't expect Gavin Stone being out there, and 2, I wouldn't expect a starting pitcher being out there that long, giving up that many runs.
Right, but this is what concerns me, especially that Wednesday game against Blake Snell. In the playoffs, you're going to face pitchers like Blake Snell. You're going to face good pitchers. And if your offense gets neutralized, you need your pitchers to pitch just as well. And Popote pitched well. I thought Popote did a good job. He made 2 mistakes, and those 2 mistakes cost him. And that's what's happening. You make those mistakes in the playoffs, that's what happens in the playoffs. It seems that the Dodgers always are the ones that make more mistakes than the other team. That's what's concerning to me, is the fact that you're going to play games like Wednesday. And what concerns me is on Monday, when you have Gavin Stone and you're going to have to go to the bullpen early, you're going to have bullpen games. And we're going to get into this a little later with the Walker Buehler situation. But the number of bullpen games that the Dodgers are already, look, they're planning for this. Andrew Friedman has said this. Dave Roberts has said this. The number of times that they've mentioned, yeah, guys are going to be piggybacking in the playoffs. What other team in the National League, let's just focus on the National League. What other teams in the National League are going to have bullpen games in the playoffs like the Dodgers are? Princesa?
I mean, none. It's all Dodgers. But who has the best bullpen? I mean, in terms of the farm system. And yeah, you're bumming me out. Like, these are facts. I know this, but I don't want to hear it. I want to believe in things like momentum and energy and the guys gelling. Do you guys remember how great the Dodgers were in August? Like in August, between Mookie and Freddie and the bullpen coming through, and Julio had a few bad games, but he did come back. Kershaw, I mean, it was just, I could visualize that World Series, and man, has momentum changed. And I wanted to shout out one of the comments here, because someone agrees with me, so of course I got to point him out. Merojo says, our momentum has slowed down, kind of a bad thing with young pitchers. I agree. Even pointing out this fact one, which is a fact, the Dodgers will be using that whole bullpen, strategy. But what else can we do? This is the situation the Dodgers are in. So
and that's that's all I'm trying to do, Princesa. I'm just trying to be practical and a realist. Michael Carrillo, welcome back. Michael has a good point. The Reds, the Giants will probably have to do bullpen games if they get in. Go ahead.
To your point, I think a lot of teams use bullpen games. I remember last year, I think once they get into that next round, the 7-game series, once they get to about game 4, game 5, there's bullpen games. I remember the Phillies were doing it last year. The Padres were doing it. A lot of teams were doing it.
The Dodgers aren't going to do it in game 4 or game 5. The Dodgers may
they
have
will
to do it in game
4.
3.
I think they're lined up for game. I mean, obviously it depends on how the pitching goes, but they're lined up probably for a game 4 bullpen.
But you told me that Lance Lynn has to have a short leash, right?
Yeah, I'm saying it depends
so if
how
Lance
they go.
Lynn gets in trouble in the 4th, you're going to pull him, right?
Then you're going to have to go into
That's
your
a bullpen game.
Yeah. But if Lance Lynn comes out,
you're going to have to cover 5 innings.
If Lance Lynn comes out, and pitches 6 or 7 like you did against the Padres, then you're fine,
right?
That's
the best case scenario right there.
And like you never really know. I mean, you can have your best starter. It could be Blake Snell. It could be Spencer Strider. They can go out there and have a horrible game and only last 2 to 3 innings, right? I mean, we've always said this: the playoffs are a crapshoot. It's like you get in, you roll the dice, and hope that it ends up for you.
Anything can happen in the playoffs. We've seen that. The teams that are supposed to win, like the Dodgers, don't. So maybe this year it'll swing our way when we're not supposed to win. I keep seeing we. Maybe this year it'll swing the Dodgers' way because they're not favored to win. I get taunted by Braves fans on Twitter. It's really annoying. So when you asked me that question, right away I was thinking the Braves. They don't. Their pitching is stellar. So
yeah. I mean, look, the Bravos are. I was very impressed with the Bravos. The only thing that I was very surprised when the Bravos were here in Los Angeles was the bullpen. And they're supposed to have a very good bullpen. And the bullpen didn't seem like it was very strong when they were here in Los Angeles. It seemed that's where the Dodgers were able to take the upper hand. The difference in that series was starting pitching. So, look, I think they could get by in that first round. Whether they end up getting the Rojos, the Giants, Milwaukee is going to be a tough series. Now, they swept Milwaukee here in Los Angeles.
Yes, they did.
Those were tough games. Those games were close, and they felt like playoff games. But I mean, let's segue into it now. Let's talk about it. the pitching rotation. Clayton Kershaw was pushed to Saturday. Kershaw's not going to admit it. You ask him, he's fine. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. All eyes are going to be on how he is on Saturday. Now, if he pitches well on Saturday, he gets up over 90 on his pitches, everyone's going to be like, okay, we're good. We're good. But Kershaw's not going to have this much rest in the playoffs. So if he needs this amount of rest, again, we've talked about this. Bobby Miller's got to be your number one. Bobby Miller has to go on the first game because Bobby Miller's the only one I feel that can go on short rest in this rotation.
There's no way.
You don't think Bobby Miller's going to be the number one starter?
I don't.
You think it's going to be Kershaw?
I think it is. I think it's not even just his physical ability. It's Kershaw. Mm-hmm. This might be the last time we get to see Kershaw pitch. I mean, there's no guarantee he's coming back next year. And that's why I say anytime you get to see Kershaw pitch, like, you got to get there. You got to be there. And I just think he deserves it. Now, that's me speaking as a fan. If I'm in the front office, and I'm with you, Juan, like, okay, well, who's going to give us the best chance to win? But can you see the wouldn't there be some kind of backlash if they don't name Kershaw the number one, especially with everything that's gone wrong with starting pitching? It's almost like a symbolism thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I want you guys on the live. You tell me, would you guys be upset? Because Princesa, I don't think you're wrong. I think they're going to sit there and try to. We need experience. It's game one. Miller has shown this. He can get rattled. He's an emotional guy. Do you want to be down 0-1 and then come back with Kershaw? Because if you start with Miller and you're down 0-1, at least in game two, you can come back with Kershaw. But you guys on the live, you tell me, how upset would you be if Kershaw is he gets the start in game one?
And I think Cody Snavely made a great point on that situation on our last show on YouTube only. You can check that on YouTube only, where he said he felt more comfortable with, if you start Miller on game one and you lose, he feels more comfortable coming back with Kershaw in a must-win game as opposed to having Kershaw in game one and you lose. Now you got to go with Bobby Miller, putting all the pressure on Bobby Miller to win game two.
You guys are talking real baseball and as if, the X's and O's. I'm talking sentimental. This is Kershaw, okay? I just don't see the Dodgers making that move without the sentimental part of this is Kershaw. Does that make sense? I'm not arguing with you whether Bobby Miller should go number one. I'm saying I don't think it's going to happen. And I love that some of the comments here. Who was it that says Kershaw will be on the IL after Saturday's game? Wow. Michael Carrillo. Kershaw might not make it to the playoffs. You guys, come on.
Hey, in the words of Too Cool Raul, don't give yourselves chorro. I mean, Too Cool Raul over here. I just wish Vin was here to say something to make us feel better.
I agree with that so much.
Look, let me put it out to you guys on the live here. All right. Look, the Dodgers have kind of overachieved this year, right? So if they end up losing in the NLCS, how pissed are you guys really going to be? How disappointed, especially with everything that's happened. The fact that the starting rotation is completely decimated. And to your point, David Watsataco, it totally would be the Dodgers, right? That in a year when everybody's like, they got no chance, there's no way they're going to win, that they end up pulling an 88 and they end up winning with these rookies. Bobby Miller and Popote end up pitching out of their mind in the postseason. What are the odds that that's actually going to happen? Probably not, but it would be such a Dodger thing, right? That all of us, they end up winning the World Series after everything that they've gone through. Babyface, has this season not felt like it's been 4 seasons in one season?
Yeah, I mean, the way it started, right? I mean, they started pretty slow, right? They got the injuries, then they kind of regrouped, started going again, then they kind of fell back again. And then, they had that August. And I mean, like we were talking with Alicia earlier, like, I mean, it just felt like there's no way this team's going to lose, right? After that August,
Right.
they just had that stretch. And then right now in September, they kind of come back down to earth a little bit with everything that's been going on. So, like, I just hope, I mean, I don't need them to get kind of to where they were August, kind of just start going, going that way by the end of the month, right? And leading them right into the playoffs. If they can catch that momentum again right at the end as they get into the playoffs, then you never know.
Yeah, Michael Carrillo, you bring up a very excellent point, and we've brought this up before on the season. Andrew Friedman builds this roster, and so you have guys that the greatest predictor of injury is past injury. So if you're signing guys that have a history of being injured, can you really expect them to be healthy? I mean, if we're being realistic, I totally get your point about Kershaw, Princesa. And this is one of those things that I think the end of this season is going to be very, very, this offseason with Kershaw is going to be very, very interesting, because for me, if Kershaw continues to have these health issues, I know he's been compared to Kobe in all this sense, but do you really think Kershaw would come back if he can't be the number one guy? If he can't be the guy that is going to be the guy who gets the baseball in a playoff game, do you think he would want to go and put himself through another long season like this? Or might he just say, you know what? My body has betrayed me. I've had a very good run.
I suspect he leans that first example. I think it's really difficult for competitors, men and women, who have been doing something for so long to walk away on their own. I think that they're going to have to not invite Kershaw back, which I don't see that happening. I want Kershaw to retire a Dodger, and I really think he has another year left in him. Now, whether he's the number one, come on, I don't think that's going to happen. And he's not an idiot. I feel like he'll still come back knowing he's not the number one. I really do believe he'll come back. I mean, I think it's just going to be, I mean, when they win the World Series, maybe he'll be like, I'm done here, and doesn't want to come back,
Yeah. I want to segue into, so we saw Kyle Hurt, an alum of La Princesa's alma mater, make a debut, and I have to say it was pretty impressive to come in there and face Tatis, Soto, and Machado, and you get them out, and then you come back for a second inning of work and you strike out the side. I mean, that was an impressive debut. And you know what your reward for that is? You're going back down to the minors, you loser. Yeah, how you freaking loser. I want your thoughts on Hurt, and then I want to follow up with this. First of all, seeing a fellow Trojan, how did that make you feel, Princesa?
Freaking awesome. USC, even though of late they've not been that great, they've lost some of their shine. I mean, they're coming back. We've got a new coach. I believe the coach is from like Downey too. Did y'all hear about that? Stankowitz, something like that. I should learn that name. The point is, it's awesome. Anytime, you know how Trojans fans are. We totally celebrate the numbers game, and in baseball, numbers matter more. You guys are like the stats nerds, you know this. But to have so many professional baseball players come out of the USC baseball program and then look like the domination that Kyle Hurt gave. What did I call him? I didn't call him Kevin Hart, did I?
No, you called
No,
him.
I didn't.
All right. So Kyle Hurt is
I'm
Kevin
just
Hart.
drinking
Is Kevin Hart.
probiotics. It's not a drink.
There you go.
It's just freaking awesome and good for him. And yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, what else? They were supposed to send him back down though, right? He's only 25. He's going to be fine. As long as he stays a Dodger, I'm very happy.
Well, that was going to be my question though, Princesa. When you said they had to send him down, babyface, what do you have to lose right now? Your pitching staff is in shambles. You've already committed to the rookies, right? You got Emmett Sheehan in the rotation. You got Popote. You got Miller. Michael Carrillo makes a very excellent point. Kyle Hurt has swing and miss stuff. He has swing and miss stuff that some of these other guys, that's where they struggle. Emmett Sheehan, he hasn't been able to put people away. Why? Because you need that swing and miss stuff. Why has Lance Lynn been struggling? He can't put guys away. And that hurt kid, he's got swing and miss stuff. So why wouldn't you just roll the dice in the playoffs? Go with the guys who've got swing and miss stuff and just roll the dice and see where that takes you.
Yeah, I think. Well, yesterday they brought him up, and when they sent him down, it's because they brought Kelly back up.
Yeah.
So you knew they had to have a spot for Kelly, and I saw a lot of people saying like, "Well, why are they sending him down?" And I mean, I get it. Hurt made an impressive, debut, right? But they was already talking. Put this guy in the postseason roster. Like, we don't know what we're gonna get. Yeah, he was great that one game, but yeah, I want to see him pitch in some other games. Hopefully, he'll get a chance to come up maybe in the last couple of weeks and actually go out there and do his thing. And if he does his thing, continues to do that, then yeah, maybe he gets to look at for the postseason roster, but not. I mean, you can't just after one outing say, hey, this guy's the next great thing, right, and put him on the postseason roster. But I mean, I definitely think he deserves another shot, and hopefully he will. I mean, I don't know. The roster is kind of tight right now. The pitching roster, there's not a lot of spaces right now, and there's that crunch, and we always see this every year. Guys that should be there, and they don't because there's that number crunch. So I don't know how it's going to work out. We got a couple weeks left to postseason. We'll see how everything rolls out.
Well, I mean, this month of September, right? That's what this is for, is to find out who's going to be on that playoff roster, right?
And
so,
well, there's a difference now too. Remember they do the call-ups, and they could have as many guys as you wanted to. You just call up whoever. You could have 30, 40 guys on your team. Now they only allow, I think it's like one pitcher and one position player, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
but that leans into what Babyface was talking about way early in the beginning of the live. Is that's why Roberts and management left Gavin Stone in, because now is the time to see who's going to make it or what they're made of, how they're going to respond, all that stuff. We don't need to win these games. It'd be nice back to momentum, but this is the time, right? And I knew they had to make room for Joe Kelly. So as much as I'm like diehard Trojan, I get it. I just want him to be able to pitch again. I'm so happy for him. So, he's from San Diego, so very cool.
To make his debut against the show pods. But I mean, that's what this month is for, right? They got to make tough decisions, and they made a tough decision early this week, and I think it was the right decision. Babyface, you were there when Walker Buehler talked to the media, and he decided he would put an end to his comeback. I never thought Walker Buehler was going to pitch this year. I mean, this guy is 13 months away from having Tommy John surgery, and you're going to throw him in a stretch drive. You're going to throw him in the postseason. The fact that he was honest and he said, look, I'm just not recovering. I had to applaud the Dodgers for coming to terms and not trying to force this and being like, look, go ahead, Princesa.
Don't you think the timing is kind of funny?
How so?
So before let's say August,
Yeah.
okay, Buehler was posting videos of himself on the mound. Buehler was, going on podcasts. I mean, they were paying him to go on. He gets paid to be on podcasts. But I'm just saying, he didn't make this. I mean, they almost they dangled it in front of us like bait that he was going to come back. Am I wrong in feeling that that's what the Dodgers and Walker Buehler more so?
Yeah, I think it was Walker Buehler, not necessarily the
Walker
Dodgers.
Buehler. Okay, but the Dodgers didn't say no, because as we started to see the injuries pile up, and again, this is before the arrest, all that stuff, before Kershaw started needing longer rest. I'm just saying, Walker, I think, in my opinion, changed his mind when he saw that there was less chance of winning the World Series. That's how I feel. I feel like.
So you think he was just like, oh man, this team ain't gonna do shit. Yeah. Why am I gonna come back?
I think so. And
strong words from La Princesa. Look at that. She has not lost her fastball. Babyface. What do you think of that?
Is that mean?
It's not mean. It's a hot take. It's a hot take. Babyface. Am I wrong? Is that not a hot take?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hot take. But I mean, I think with Buehler, and he said it yesterday, is I think he really wanted to come back, right? But he said it's a recovery. It's taking him longer to recover because that's the first thing they asked him is like, did you get hurt? Like, did you have any setbacks? Trying to rush back. And you got to remember too, this guy's he's coming off his second Tommy John. Going next season is his final year before free agency. So he wants to get out there and compete, and he wants to get paid, right?
Yeah.
So that was the thing. Like he said, no, nothing's wrong physically. It's just a recovery time. He wasn't recovering in time to get ready for his next start, and he didn't want to. He said he didn't want to put that on the Dodgers, right? When he couldn't, they're going to need him in 5 days, and he's not ready to go. And since he's not ready to go, he didn't want to take a spot now from one of these other guys. Could be one of the younger guys or whoever, right? He didn't want to kind of mess that up.
Princesa?
But that's also because he wasn't willing to take a bullpen position. He wanted to be able to go, 6 innings, and he's a competitor. He's one of the best. I get that. I'm not attacking him personally. I'm just saying, once he knew, the Dodgers were losing, their chances of winning it all went down south. And they weren't going to play ball with him in that, yes, we're going to let you hurt yourself again, by letting you be number one and in the starting rotation. So that's not Buehler's mentality. He wants to be out there, He wants to be a number one. He wants to be in the starting rotation. So I get that, why not wanting to come back. But I really do believe that it's the timing.
And they did ask him about that, if he would, just come back to be in the bullpen, a late inning guy. And he said, have you seen my relief numbers? So.
Yeah, look, it's a skill to pitch in relief, and not everyone can do it. But going back to La Princesa's hot take, if Walker Buehler was being honest with him and said, hey, man, this team ain't going anywhere, do you think the Dodgers front office is being honest with themselves and going, look, man, this is a lot to overcome. We've lost a lot in our starting rotation. We got these young kids who are getting their first taste of Major League Baseball, and now we're going to throw them into the postseason. And like I said, I think they could get past the first round. But if they end up getting the Bravos, you saw what that Bravos lineup does, man. That Bravos lineup makes every pitcher work. And what concerns me is every game's going to be a bullpen game in that series. But let's say they don't get the Bravos. Like, what if the Phillies end up upsetting the Bravos? That means the Phillies are red hot, and the Phillies have a lineup also that is pretty dangerous. I think, no one is going to be more surprised if the Dodgers end up winning the World Series than me. Because everything, how can we ignore what we're seeing before our eyes? This is a lot to overcome, is it not, babyface?
It's a lot. Honestly, like last season, right? I felt pretty comfortable going into the playoffs, right? You felt good. This team, Dodgers team, was really good, right? Really good. And there's been years this team's been really, really good, and they bow out pretty early. There's been years where they're okay, they're pretty good, and they made it to the World Series. Like 18, I think 17 they're really good, right?
Yeah.
And we know what happened. 18 they probably weren't as strong. They still made it to the World Series, right? And that one kind of knew, like the Red Sox were really, really good. So we knew what happened. But you never know. There's going to be a lot of things that have to go the Dodgers' way. Obviously, that the pitching has to hold up, right? And we've talked about this prior to the defense, right? There's been a lot of plays on defense.
How dare you speak badly of Max Muncy?
And I'm not even talking about Muncy. I'm talking, there was that play with Outman and Chris Taylor, and
oh yeah,
Outman being the team player, he said, my fault. No, it wasn't your fault. You're the center fielder. That's Chris Taylor's fault. You are roaming center field. You call everything. That was Chris Taylor's fault. But Outman, being the rookie, said, hey,
look, I was there. I was in that clubhouse. Okay. And I know that Outman's getting a lot of credit for taking the blame for that. Chris Taylor also said that was his mistake. So I want to give, let me tell you, that clubhouse was not fun to be in. On Monday, Chris Taylor was super pissed. He was super pissed. And I want to thank him because he still talked to me afterwards about being a nominee for the Roberto Clemente Award when he clearly did not want to talk to anybody.
You
And
kind
that
of
was,
see it in his eyes in that video. I was looking at him like
it was
he looked,
horrible timing
he
on
looked
my
a little
part.
heated.
Yeah, he was heated, and that's horrible timing on my part. But I was trying to cheer up the guy because he was super pissed. James Outman was like saddest Christmas ever sitting in front of his locker, right? This is how pissed those two guys were after that play. Kirsten Watson of Sportsnet LA refused to put the camera on them. She walked away and said no. It was the beat reporters that ended up talking to both of those guys, but they were pissed. So they knew. So, and that's a side that I think a lot of the fans don't see is how much these guys really care. We get a lot of we get a lot, these guys, they don't even care. They just want their money, you know, they just go in there and it's like, these guys, trust me, man, you saw this. Those guys were super pissed. They lost a game that you've been saying all along, babyface, is meaningless. It wasn't meaningless to them. They knew they lost a game that they should have won. And it was a tough sight to see.
Yeah, I mean, that, like I said, the defense has been a little sketchy, you know, as of late. You know, that playing, like you mentioned, you know, Muncy, he's having a hard time at third base, and we're kind of seeing it, you know, all over, you know. So that is definitely something that you can't not have in the playoffs, because you give any team an extra out, especially a team like the Braves, they're gonna capitalize every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's why it concerns me. Like, I can't unsee this kind of stuff, guys. I mean, when you add
What
the
about
rotation,
some of the bright spots, like Austin Barnes, his bat actually getting hot, and I don't want to bring up Will Smith. Like, poor guy, is he tired or what? When are we gonna get Will Smith back? His bat. Yeah, we could sit here and poke everything that's going wrong with the Dodgers, but it's like some of our crew that's hanging out with us tonight, there's a lot of fans that are like, hey, they're doing well considering they shouldn't be, right? You said it, Juan, overcoming. I'm just worried about the momentum. We've seen that over and over. Last year was a great example. I feel like the Dodgers just looked like they didn't want it. They weren't having fun. And August gave us glimpses of a team that's gelling and having fun and making up dances and going out to dinner afterward together. All of that good stuff that shows they're a team. And now maybe just the dark forces have taken over and they're not a team like that anymore. And how do they get it back? And I don't think erasing murals is the way to do it, at least not in the clubhouse. I get what that looks like in the culture that we live in. It's going to show that the Dodgers take it seriously. But if Kike and those fellas are admitting that the Dodgers aren't talking to them about these kinds of situations, I don't know. Is that mendable? How many games do we have left? 16?
yeah.
I mean, is that enough time? What are we gonna do?
I think they just need more the Freddie. They just need more of that dance out there. Get them loose again. Get them going. I think they'll be all right.
It's just weird how cold and quiet, you know, everyone got. Everyone, I'm generalizing, but here and there, they're not playing. The 1 and the 2 are not setting each other up. And then, you know, you've got injuries to our DH and all that stuff. How about Hayward? There's a bright spot. See?
Yeah. No, and that's going to be something to discuss in the offseason, looking back and how you measure the success. If this season ends in the Dodgers not winning a World Series, can you go back and say, hey, look, there was still a lot of good stuff that happened. Yeah, the season didn't end the way we wanted it. That's the way it ends for the majority of teams in Major League Baseball. But it's one of those things. Look, I really miss having the lives with you guys. I love interacting with you guys. Philip Lopez, again, the president of the Austin Barnes I Hate fan club. Don't get him started on Austin Barnes. I mean, Philip Lopez over here treating Austin Barnes like he plays for the Raiders. The Raiders, the first place AFC West, right, Philip Lopez? That's right. If the season ended today, the Raiders would be in the playoffs, everybody. Just letting you guys all know that. That's what the crazy thing is as flawed as this team is, I really feel like there's a part of me that in my mind is just like, there's no way they're going to win. But then there's in the back of my head going, this is a team that would end up winning, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Because you're just sitting there going, of all the years that we had really good teams and they all get eliminated, and this is the team that ends up winning it all. But who knows? We might.
We need that Juanito. We need that guy.
Hey, Alonso's joining us on the live, everybody. Shout out to Alonso. He just had surgery today. The poor guy is going through it, but he was able to come in time to be able to see Philip Lopez catch a stray there. But hey, Philip Lopez, the Raiders live to see another day. Let's wrap up the show with our picks. Everybody, get your picks in. We're going to do 6 games. We're going to do 3 against the Marineros, and then we're going to do 3 against Los Tigres de Detroit. So, quick update. You guys, the listeners, the viewers, you guys are kicking ass this year. You have a 3-game lead over me. You have a 4-game lead over Babyface and La Reina de Playa Larga. And La Princesa, well, it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year. So Michael Carrillo's already coming in 3-3. All right. So let's go to the ladies line. Princesa, 6 games, 3 the Marineros, and then 3 with the Tigres of Detroit.
I'm going to start backwards. I think the Dodgers will sweep the Tigers. I'm not a fan of the scheduling that MLB has put the Dodgers in with the rain delays and the fights back and forth. And I feel like they're setting up the Dodgers for failure, but that's a whole other story. I'm going to say they're going to let's go 4-2. 4-2.
4-2. Okay. I think they are going 3-3. I think they're going to lose 2 out of 3 to the Marineros, and I think they'll end up winning 2 out of 3 against Los Tigres de Detroit. Babyface.
It's tough. I think they'll get the sweep also against the Tigers. But I'm gonna go. Can I go 4-2, Alicia, or no? Is that one yours?
No, go 4-2. I'm out of it. I've been on my sabbatical for a while, so I'm just playing for fun. Definitely go.
We should put some mythical money on it, like Mason and Ireland do,
like
right?
Mason and Ireland. I bet 10,000 mythical dollars on the Dodgers going 4-2. I see your 3-3 one because the Mariners have a lot more to lose, right? They're still
the Marineros are fighting not only for the division, but they're still fighting for a wild card spot. And the pitching, they have the number 1 pitching staff. So their pitching is keeping them in games. Their pitching is keeping them in games. I hope we just win 1 up there.
I'll go 4-2, kind of keep it safe in case something goes sideways either series.
All right, Babyface is going 4-2. All right, so that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. I can't thank you enough. I know that there's a lot of Dodger podcasts out there, and I love that you guys support ours. Even if you end up listening to the other ones, just come back and tell us what we do better. That's all. And even if we don't do anything better, lie to us and make us feel good about ourselves, yes. Because we need that. I just want to end this by tomorrow is Latino Heritage Month. It kicks off. And I just want to remind everyone that we are the only all Latino Dodgers podcast. Everybody that works on this show, they're all Latinos. And Cody Snavely, who's a contributor, I think I don't want to say he's Miklos, but if anybody has seen Colors, if you guys know the redheaded cholo, I don't know what the character's name is, but the redheaded cholo in Colors, I think that's who Cody Snavely is for the Bleedlos podcast.
He's also Malachi in Children of the Corn. Not Blade. The character in Colors plays.
Oh, okay. I thought you were. I thought you were calling. I thought you were calling Cody Malachi.
No.
Anyways,
no.
If you've just stumbled across us for the first time and you're not aware of us, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. You can listen to the audio portion, or if not, you can look at La Princesa's beautiful face on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have material, we have content on YouTube that is only specific to YouTube, so you won't be able to hear it on the podcast.
This episode specifically, this will just be on YouTube. We will have another new episode tomorrow previewing the Mariners series, so that will be audio and YouTube. This live, if you want to catch it again on the replay, only on YouTube.
That's true. Well, we're dropping a new episode tomorrow. Gary Hill Jr., he is the play-by-play radio announcer of the Marineros, gives us a preview of the Dodgers and the Marineros. He gives us a lot of good info on the Marineros, what to look for this weekend. So, yo ha sido su servidor Juan Ramírez, de parte de mis colegas, la princesa de Picolandia and Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima.
Bye.